This issue of status is one that I kept thinking about when I was reading your book, that so much of what you describe about middle-aged women being despised, about this process that women go through when they age and then they suddenly discover that they are, the term that's often used is feeling invisible, all of a sudden feeling invisible when you enter, say, your 40s or 50s. Clearly completely true. This is universally described by women going through this process. And it's one of these odd manifestations of class politics where you will actually inhabit both classes across your life cycle as long as you live long enough, which isn't true for most things. And basically what you're describing, what everyone who goes through this process is describing, is a loss of status. And it's slightly complicated because there are clearly downsides. Feminists have pointed out there are many downsides of being a young, beautiful woman. There's a lot of good that comes from being a young, beautiful woman, and you do have a certain kind of power. You also have an extreme vulnerability. But it comes with status, it does. And then when you lose that and you enter the phase of life where men in general, including men like Jimmy Savile, no longer consider you to have any real sexual value, it's an enormous shock. And basically, yes, it is that sudden loss of status, which I think maybe is more pronounced now than in previous eras. I wonder if you think that there has been if the historical status of middle-aged women is even lower now than it has been at other points in the past.
I think I almost have a feeling now that some people believe it's a choice that women have made more than they did in the past, that somehow beliefs about gender fluidity, beliefs about body modification, beliefs about your identity and how you look being a reflection of your inner self feed into this idea that someone who looks like Helen Lovejoy kind of chose to be that person, and that it's a reflection of who she is. And it's not this inevitable process. I mean, I think just as people have started talking in ways I find quite disturbing about puberty should be a choice, I think there's this idea that becoming an older middle-aged woman is a choice, or almost that you it's some moral misstep that you've made, because who would want to identify with that? I mean, there's a quote in the book from Jane Schilling's The Stranger in the Mirror that I found really striking, where she's remembering being a teenage girl and looking at her own mother and thinking, God, if I looked like that, I couldn't get up in the morning, I couldn't breathe, I'd hate it. And then, obviously you get there and it's not like that at all, but there's this kind of judgment on what you supposedly allowed to happen to you. And I think in an age of botox and all sorts of treatments
Botox,
as well,
is that the thing?
it becomes within older women as a group, there's also a kind of class splitting off, that the more money you have, the more you can sort of visibly resist this. And I think there's a huge pressure to do that as well. And particularly within certain social groups, if you want to still be considered someone who has value, you're not necessarily to be considered sexually attractive. I mean, who would want to be considered sexually attracted to people like Jimmy Savile? Lots of us, it can be a relief not to have that kind of attention on you. But when it's associated with not having your views taken seriously, being dismissed politically, having any views that you might have on issues such as sexual entitlement and sexual abuse being put down to you being this shrewish, jealous, sexless, strange creature, I think the desire to kind of pass, if not as someone younger, but at least as someone who has made the effort not to give in to that process, there is status in it, in trying to avoid it. And it's a thing, like Naomi Wolf said in The Beauty Myth, that once it becomes possible to do something, it kind of becomes an obligation in terms of things like anti-aging and those kind of treatments that you can have.
Yeah.
I think in the 80s, it was dyeing your hair had the same kind of debate surrounding it that Botox has now, whereas dyeing your hair, like, no one would think much about it now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been dyeing my hair since I was like 20 because I'm so prematurely grey.
Oh, I'm done. Yeah,
it's completely normal now. Yes, I don't think, I can't think of any time recently I've heard anyone debate hair dye as an anti-aging intervention, whereas Botox is still sort of controversial.
Yeah.
I mean, my theory about these kind of cosmetic interventions is that as soon as they become, is that it's actually driven by the tech. You know, as soon as this new tech comes on the market and something becomes available, initially it will be expensive and it will be used by celebrities, and then it will kind of filter down the economic food chain, and then it will become practically compulsory. So hair dye is practically compulsory. Botox and fillers aren't yet, but they are still very, very widely used. And then it completely changes what normal looks like. Yeah. And then the idea of looking like what a natural 40-year-old woman looks like becomes unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean, I think about it in terms of at work or around other women my age, some of whom have made the choice to have Botox. Like, does it look like the fact that I haven't is some kind of political decision on my part? In the same way that it's almost like puberty is being politicized. Are these processes being treated as just allowing nature to take its course? Is it being seen as some kind of political decision, and also some kind of statement about your relationship to womanhood and to being female? And actually you're seen as quite a conservative or regressive type if you just accept your body for what it is.
Like not shaving your legs and not wearing a bra in another era.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
I don't particularly shave my legs, but sorry, that's probably unnecessary. See, no filter.
Save that for the paywalls bit. We'll go into detail.